Warriors versus Rockets Game 2 analysis. This game was wild, so let's dive into what the Rockets did differently in order to win this game. I'm going to start off with the sad news here first, is that Jimmy Butler got hurt. And I know nobody wants to hear excuses, but the fact of the matter is, Jimmy Butler is one of the most important players on that team. We all know how well he was playing and how much better he made the Warriors, like in every literal statistical category. And the Rockets may still have won this game, even if Jimmy played the whole game. But he only played 8 minutes, and now he's getting an MRI, so we hope he's okay. But this is probably one of the biggest reasons or biggest factors that contributed to the outcome definitely going the Rockets' way. Again, I'm not saying the Rockets wouldn't have won with Jimmy still there, but we know Jimmy makes a huge difference. So, this is obviously a big factor. The other biggest difference from the Rockets' standpoint is Jalen Green. Jalen Green had a very poor performance in Game 1, and in Game 2, he lit it up. The Warriors also turned the ball over so many times, and part of that is due to the Rockets' defense because they were just swarming, although this series kind of is like the opposite of what the Lakers versus Minnesota game was yesterday. I talked about how in that game, in the second quarter especially, it was just a whistle, like a foul every 2 seconds. Didn't matter what it was just a foul. Nobody can get into a flow, and it was just insane. There was no reason for a foul every 30 seconds. And I was saying in other playoff series, we see them let them play. In the Warriors versus Rockets series, it's like they're playing football. Seriously, if you just go look up defensive clips from the first 2 games, you will see some crazy things that you're like, how does that not get called? And it's a very physical series, so they obviously can't call everything. And I do agree with, letting them play somewhat. I didn't like how in the Lakers game they wouldn't let them do anything. But I'm saying it's the other end of the spectrum. Some of these things are getting out of hand. But to me, again, the reason or the biggest reason that the Rockets won was Jalen Green. Because the Warriors cut the lead to 11. Now the Rockets basically held the lead the whole time, right? Every time the Warriors would cut into the lead, the Rockets had an answer. So it never got super, super close, but the person who had the answer every time was Jalen Green. I didn't understand some of the defensive coverage by the Warriors on Jalen Green. And again, they did not have Jimmy, who is a top-tier defender. Brandon Pajemski was under the weather. He really didn't play much, and when he did play, he really was not moving well. So to be fair, they didn't have all their guys to put on Jalen Green. But to be fair, even with that, there were wide open shots for Jalen Green. It had nothing to do necessarily with Jimmy being on or off the floor. In a totality standpoint, absolutely, obviously, because then you have someone to rotate. But there were, like I said, wide open threes for Jalen Green after he was already on fire. There was some times where they were just not rotating. And Jalen Green was the one being left open. And I was like, that is the one guy you cannot leave open because he's the only one that is hot. Not that you ever want to leave anyone open, but it's okay, take your chances for Dylan Brooks hitting the 3, right? Even though you should still close out. Jalen Green getting some wide open shots. I'm like, huh? This guy is hitting all his shots. How does that make sense? The team that loses always comes out with more energy. So that is something that we kind of expected, and I feel like a lot of people probably expected the Rockets to win this game because the Warriors stole Game 1, and kind of similar to the Wolves, you stole home court back. So it wasn't a necessity to win this game. But to me, really the biggest difference was the Jimmy thing, which we'll never know what would have happened, and then Jalen Green obviously performing super well because they can't win this series if Jalen Green's going to have single digits. I also thought Ime Udoka called really good timeouts because the Warriors were starting to make their runs. Again, even though they didn't cut it super close, they got to 11, and Ime Udoka immediately called a timeout. And as soon as he called a timeout, he, set up some plays and whatever in the timeout. And immediately they turned the Warriors over. I think Jalen Green got the dunk there. I'm trying to remember which play this was. And then they score again. It goes right back up to 17. And that happened a couple of times. The Warriors were about to make a run. You could feel it. You could see it. Ime Udoka called timeout and immediately stopped it. So shout out to Ime Udoka for that because he did a really good job at that.